The average UK house now takes 217 days to sell. 217 days. That's longer than it takes to build a house from scratch. In London, it's even worse. 312 days. Nearly a full year just sitting, rotting, with the price dropping every single week. But here's the data that proves the market's actually dead. Last month, only 11% of properties listed actually sold. 11%. The other 89%? They're zombie listings. Properties nobody wants at any price. Estate agents are now advising sellers to drop asking prices by 40% on day one just to get a single viewing. The UK housing market hasn't just crashed. It's frozen solid like a corpse. We're witnessing something that's never happened before in British history, a complete breakdown in the basic ability to buy and sell property. Not because people don't want to move, but because buyers and sellers exist in completely different realities. Sellers still think their 3-bedroom semi in Birmingham is worth $400,000 because Zoopla says so. Buyers know that same house sold for $240,000 down the street last week. That gap between fantasy and reality has paralysed everything. Estate agents are having mental breakdowns. I spoke to one in Manchester who hasn't made a sale in 4 months. 4 months without a single completion. She says sellers refuse to accept reality while buyers won't even view properties priced more than 30% above recent sales. The standoff is total, and while everyone waits, the market is dying. Banks are hiding a repossession tsunami that's about to break. They've created a new category called voluntary surrender, where homeowners hand back keys without formal repossession proceedings. 43,000 voluntary surrenders in the last quarter alone, but these don't show up in repossession statistics. Here's how it works. The bank calls you, says your house is worth less than your mortgage, offers to take the property and write off the negative equity if you leave quietly. No court proceedings, no public record, just hand over the keys and walk away. Sarah from Bristol did this last month. Bought for $320,000 in 2021, now worth $240,000. Mortgage payment jumped from £900 to £2,100. Bank offered to take the house and clear the debt. She took it. The banks are doing this to avoid official repossession numbers that would crash the market. But the result is the same. Thousands of families losing homes every week while statistics show everything's fine. NatWest admitted in leaked documents they expect to voluntarily surrender 70,000 properties by end of 2025. Barclays targeting 50,000. Lloyds 100,000. That's 220,000 hidden repossessions coming. UK buyers haven't just pulled back, they've gone on. Complete strike. First-time buyer inquiries are down 83% from 2019 levels. But here's the shocking part. These aren't people who can't afford to buy. These are qualified buyers with deposits who've decided waiting is smarter than buying. Tom, an engineer from Leeds, has $100,000 deposit. Household income $90,000. Perfect credit. Could buy tomorrow. But he's not. Why? He's calculated that waiting 2 years will save him $200,000 on purchase price. This buyer strike is coordinated through social media. Facebook groups with hundreds of thousands of members sharing real sale prices, telling each other to wait, posting about properties that sold for half asking price. The psychology has completely flipped. Buying property used to create FOMO, fear of missing out. Now it creates FORD, fear of reckless decisions. Buyers believe anyone purchasing today is an idiot who'll lose everything. When qualified buyers with money refuse to buy, that's not a market correction, that's a market revolution. And revolutions don't reverse quickly. Entire developments across the UK have become ghost estates. Hundreds of homes completely empty. There's a development in Reading, 450 apartments built in 2022. Current occupancy, 12%. 54 families in 450 units. The rest are empty, not for sale, not for rent, just empty because the developer can't admit they're worthless. Birmingham has 7 ghost estates. Manchester has 12. Even London has ghost towers. Luxury developments in Nine Elms, Battersea, Elephant and Castle, where entire floors are dark at night. The developers won't drop prices because that would trigger loan defaults. The banks won't force sales because that would crash their collateral values. So these properties sit empty, destroying the areas around them. I visited one in Salford. 300 units, maybe 20 occupied. The empty units are becoming derelict. Windows broken. Pipes burst. Squatters moving in. The occupied units are becoming worthless because who wants to live in a ghost town? Conservative estimate? 400,000 new build properties sitting completely empty across the UK. That's more than the government builds in 2 years just rotting. Your pension is about to discover it owns worthless property. UK pension funds have 41% of assets linked to commercial and residential property. That's £400 billion. But the properties are being valued at fantasy prices from 2021. When reality hits, and it's starting now, those valuations will drop 40% minimum. That's 160 billion in pension wealth that doesn't exist. Gone. Your retirement evaporated. Legal & General just froze their property fund. Aviva restricted withdrawals. Standard Life stopped redemptions. They know what's coming. When pension funds stop letting you access your own money, catastrophe is imminent, but it's worse. These funds own mortgages, development loans, property bonds. When developers default, when mortgages fail, when bonds become worthless, the losses multiply. The Pension Protection Fund ran stress tests. Their worst-case scenario, 37% of UK defined benefit pension schemes failing simultaneously. That's 12 million people losing their pensions. International money isn't just leaving UK property. It's fleeing like the buildings on fire. Singapore's GIC dumped £8 billion of UK property in 6 months, taking 40% losses just to get out. When sovereign wealth funds accept 40% losses, they know something we don't. Chinese investment in UK property? Down 97%, from 31 billion annually to 900 million. That's not a reduction, that's complete abandonment. Middle Eastern funds that bought everything from 2010-2020, selling everything. Qatar Investment Authority offloading Canary Wharf. Saudis dumping Mayfair. UAE fleeing. Manchester. But here's the terrifying part. They're not just leaving, they're shorting, betting billions that UK property will collapse further. They're literally profiting from destroying our market. The smart money has concluded. UK property is uninvestable. When international capital declares your country uninvestable, game over. Nobody's connecting property collapse to the unemployment bomb about to detonate. 2 million UK jobs depend on property transactions. Estate agents, solicitors, surveyors, mortgage brokers, removal companies, tradesmen. When property stops moving, these jobs vanish. It's already starting. 1,400 estate agencies closed last year. 30,000 jobs gone. Conveyancing solicitors laying off thousands. Mortgage brokers closing en masse. But the multiplier effect is worse. Every property transaction generates economic activity, furniture, decorating, repairs, appliances. When transactions stop, those businesses die too. IKEA UK sales down 29%. B&Q closing stores. local builders going bust at 13 per day. The property freeze is creating an economic depression that'll make millions unemployed. Those newly unemployed can't pay mortgages. More defaults. More forced sales. Prices fall further. More transactions freeze. More jobs lost. The doom loop accelerates. The government's internal documents show they're preparing for civil unrest when housing completely breaks. Operation Shelter. Leaked documents show plans for emergency housing requisitions when homelessness passes 1 million. Taking empty properties by force. Housing families in abandoned developments. They're planning for significant public disorder in major cities when repossessions peak. Military involvement in maintaining order. Suspension of property rights. It's not conspiracy. It's in their contingency planning. Local councils are already breaking. Birmingham effectively bankrupt, considering seizing empty properties for emergency housing. Manchester exploring crisis accommodation powers. London councils demanding government intervention. When middle-class families start losing homes en masse, social order breaks. The government knows this. They're not planning to prevent it. They're planning to contain it. The UK is experiencing demographic collapse that guarantees property disaster for decades. Birth rates have fallen off a cliff, down 41% in 10 years. Young people aren't having children because they can't afford homes. No home, no family, no families, no future housing demand. But the elderly tsunami is worse. 4 million boomers will die in the next decade. Their properties flooding the market simultaneously. Who's buying them? Not their kids. They can't afford them. Not young families. They don't exist. We're about to have millions of properties with no buyers. Ever. The demographic pyramid has inverted. The buyers who should exist weren't born because their parents couldn't afford homes. Meanwhile, immigration is reversing. EU workers fled post-Brexit. Hong Kong arrivals peaked and declined. Even desperate refugees are choosing other countries. The UK has become where hope goes to die. The solution being implemented is corporate ownership of everything. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they're raising hundreds of billions for UK property. Not to buy now, to buy after complete collapse, when properties are 20% of current prices. The plan is simple. Let the market collapse. Let families lose everything. Let small landlords go bankrupt. Then buy everything for nothing and rent it back to the same people who lost it. This isn't speculation. BlackRock executives have explicitly stated they expect to own 30% of UK housing by 2035. Vanguard targeting 20%. A handful of corporations owning most British homes. You'll rent from apps. No local landlords, no negotiation. Algorithm-determined rents. Algorithm-determined evictions. Living under corporate control from birth to death. Digital feudalism. The government supports this. They need someone to house people after the collapse. Corporations have promised to maintain affordable rents in exchange for massive tax breaks and regulatory elimination. The UK is being transformed from a property-owning democracy to a corporate-owned rental state. And it's happening right now while everyone argues about interest rates. 217 days average selling time. 89% of properties not selling. 43,000 hidden repossessions. 400,000 empty ghost homes. This isn't a crash anymore. It's complete market failure. The basic mechanism of buying and selling property has broken beyond repair. The UK property market is now a zombie, technically alive, but actually dead, moving without purpose, destroying everything it touches. And nobody in power wants to admit it, because admitting it makes it real. If you own property, you own an illusion. The value you think you have doesn't exist. If you're trying to buy, stop. This has years left to fall. If you're renting, prepare for worse. Much worse. The UK housing market hasn't just crashed. It's ceased to function as a market. What replaces it won't be British, won't be democratic, and won't include you owning anything. This is huge. This is historic. This is the end of British property ownership as we've known it for centuries. And it's happening right now, today, while everyone pretends it's just a correction.